going on, everybody, and welcome back to Frankie's Aquatics right here on the wonderful platform that is YouTube. I just spat at you then, I apologise, I'm sorry. I hope you all had a fantastic week. Mine was, oh, what a week. It was my birthday week. Last week, this week, whatever. The 16th of April was my birthday. And I did a bit of a boo-boo. Yeah, I kind of made a bit of a mistake. I was doing water changes, which is part of my day-to-day occurrence, and I love water changes. People think I'm crazy, but I do love water changes. And I was filling up, I've got a big yellow flexi bucket that I use for the tanks when I'm draining out the water, and I'd filled it a little bit too high, and I was like, oh dear, that's a bit high, I'll be alright, typical bloke, I'll be alright, yeah, I'll lift it, be alright, really. And I turned around to open the door to make my journey to the back garden a little bit more easier, and as I turned, I don't know if I kicked it or I don't know if it just fell, but the bucket wasn't quite sat on the table I had it sat on, and it just went woof. I literally turned around, it was like a slow motion movie, it just kind of went everywhere. I'm not even joking you, the water was thick up to my skirting board like that. I'm not even joking you, it was a good fair amount of litres that I threw all over the floor, and it's still a little bit soggy now. Thankfully, Jem, the wife, hasn't kicked me out or tried to kill me, so I'm still here to do this week's video, but it was a close one. Then on my birthday itself, obviously with the isolation still in full swing, I just kind of stayed at home and had a couple of beers on my own. It sounds very lonely, but I actually had a good time listening to some podcasts, headphones on, and ended up staying up till 4:30 in the morning, drinking my old Fosters like a legend that I am. Yes, it was quite the birthday. Not a little bit different to what they normally like, but it was good nevertheless. So this week's video is quite possibly, not even quite possibly, it absolutely is the most requested question and video that gets put forward to me on a daily basis. People always come to me asking about tank cycling. Please explain tank cycling to me. Oh, excuse me. And it really is simple. It's really easy so long as you know how. Now, if you start Googling things, it will get really complicated. The nitrogen cycle will pop up here, there and everywhere, and it will confuse the socks off you. Quite literally, I've got no socks on. Confuse the socks off me, it did. So this week I wanted to break down in real simple terms how to successfully cycle a tank. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a water test kit. Yes, you do need one. Stop trying to cut corners, you cheapskate. Get yourself a water test kit, you need one. Now, everyone that gets into the hobby usually has this barrier of, do I need to worry about tank cycling? Is it really that important? Is it really? Can they not just cut corners and just change a little bit of water out every now and again? And it's really important that you have a cycled tank. The main reason is for the health of your animal, in this case your axolotl. If you don't have a cycled tank, you're going to cause all sorts of crazy spikes with your ammonia and your nitrites and your nitrates, and everything's going to be like, woo! It's not going to be fair to your animals, so you do have to cycle your tank. But don't worry, today, for those of you that already know how to cycle a tank, this video might be a little bit boring for you this week. It might be a little bit, oh, but it is really important. I'm going to strip it down, I'm going to make it really basic, and I'm going to explain to you how to successfully cycle your tank. So come with me as we discuss how to successfully cycle your Axolotl Aquarium, or any aquarium for that matter. Now I'm going to walk off here, I do this for a fact, there's nothing over here. We're going to have a ponder anyway. Come on, off we go. So the more technical term for this is actually known as the nitrogen cycle. Now if you punch that into Google, you're going to get all sorts of funky results. So let's just simplify things, strip it back and take it in small, manageable, bite-sized steps. So let's start this whole thing, we'll start with an axolotl. Now of course, axolotls are not just very cute, they also have very ferocious little appetites. So with that comes food. So with axolotls, they like earthworms, bloodworms, the occasional shrimp. I don't feed shrimp myself, but they do like them. And they'll eat pellets as well. Now all of this, once digested or once left within the tank, will form an ammonia source. Now ammonia is what kickstarts your cycle. So just to reiterate, ammonia can be caused by axolotl poo or fish poo, any plants that have died and rotting within the tank, and any missed uneaten food that might be hiding behind the filter. Then over time, the ammonia will be eaten by beneficial bacteria within your filter and will convert into nitrite. And then more beneficial bacteria will eat that and make it into nitrate. Are you keeping up? What's really important to remember that ammonia, nitrite and nitrate are all toxic to your fish and your axolotl. This is why it's recommended you cycle your tank before you introduce the axolotl to your aquarium. It's absolutely vital that you monitor your water parameters carefully during the cycle and therefore afterward. I check my waters every other week without fail, and thankfully I pride myself on really good water. Now the best way to do this is to purchase a water test kit. There are obviously various models on the market. I personally recommend the API Freshwater Master Test Kit. This will do absolutely everything you need and more to make sure your waters stay absolutely on point. You are going to want this to read at 0 ppm, that's parts per million in ammonia. You're going to want it to read 0 ppm with nitrite as well. And then over time, when the cycle starts to take hold, your nitrate levels will crawl higher. Now we change out the water to keep the nitrate low. We don't want it completely at 0 because that means you've got an uncycled tank. You're going to want it to sit around 5 to 20, maybe a little bit higher. And that will mean that your cycle, that's your good bacteria, is doing what it's meant to be doing, and voila, your tank is cycled. Now, how you keep the nitrates level down to make them not so toxic towards your axolotls is by doing weekly water changes. I change anywhere between 20, 30, maybe even 40 if the tank's really dirty, % of the water each and every week. This just basically keeps the cycle bobbing along quite nicely, quite happily and quite content. Now some people come to me asking about live plants. Now live plants will actually eat the ammonia, helping keep the cycle in tow. Now I don't personally use plants, the main reason being is axolotls are really clumsy and they like to sit on just about everything, including your live plants, which will basically squash them and even kill them, rendering them fairly useless. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't use live plants. If you are persistent enough, you can make them work. The best way to do this is apply them in numbers. So rather than just buying 1 or 2 plants, buy 5 or 6 of them. And then hopefully with a little bit sprinkle of luck, your plants may just survive and not have to face the fate of the axolotl butt. Now, if it's not recommended to add an axolotl, how am I meant to kickstart the ammonia source? How do I do this? Now there are a few things that you can do, so let's discuss those. Some people like to just sprinkle a little bit of fish food in there because uneaten fish food or axolotl food or anything of the sort will eventually break down and cause a source of ammonia. Now for me this doesn't always work too quickly, so if you want a quicker way of doing this you can cut a few corners. You can actually buy ammonia in bottles. You can buy it in liquid form. I think it's called KICKSTART. There's various products and potions that are available on the market, but these do work great and they will absolutely kickstart your cycle. You can also use media from an already established aquarium filter. This is a technique that I use the most and I do find this to be the most convenient and quickest. The simple way of doing that is to remove some of the filter media at the back and place it into your new filter. Now over a couple of days, maybe a week or 2, that will kickstart your cycle a little bit quicker. Now that method is not completely foolproof, although in my opinion it is by far the most effective. I use sponge filters that contain 2 canisters and I remove one of the canisters and place it in with a new sponge filter. This way I'm getting beneficial bacteria right from the get and it works an absolute charm. Now the big question on everybody's lips is how long does a cycle take to take control? It varies depending on what method you use. It can take place in a couple of weeks if you use already established media, or it can take a couple of months in some cases depending on what method you use. I do think it's very important to remember that the beneficial bacteria within your aquarium, which helps keep your cycle ticking along quite nicely, is not exclusively living within your filter. It can also be on decorations within your tank, it can be on the sides of the walls of your aquarium, and it can be on the substrate that you use. So when you see a messy tank, don't be tempted to go in there and completely clean it down with an 100% water change. All you'll do by doing that is cause your cycle to crash. Boo! Nobody wants a crash cycle. And then, yep, you've guessed it, you've got to start the whole cycle process all over again. It's no fun. So remember, cycling a tank takes time, a whole lot of patience, and absolutely requires a water test kit. But let's be honest here, seeing your cute axolotl happy within his new aquarium is definitely worth the wait. And that's really it. It really is that simple. It does get confusing. I think a lot of the time people get impatient and they want to be able to buy a tank, buy your axolotl, put your axolotl straight in and just ta-da! You can do it with a fish in cycle, or in this case an axolotl in cycle. Do I recommend it? No, because you have to be super vigilant with your waters. You have to make sure you have to have a decent amount of ammonia to kickstart the cycle. Now, if you do that with an axolotl in there, that poor axolotl is going to experience that ammonia. And he don't want none of that. He ain't got no time for that. He doesn't want to be experiencing any spikes or anything like that. So just be sensible, but please, if you take anything away from today, please invest yourself in a water test kit. Now, I use the API water test kit because it's just easy, it's convenient, a little bit pricey compared to some others on the market, but it's a reliable product. Don't think you can cut corners and not use it. It's really important to know where you are with your waters, because 9 times out of 10, there it is again, there's going to be a reason as to why your axolotl is sickly. And if you need to know the reason, you need to check your waters. If you don't check your waters and you start coming to me saying what sort of axolotl is floating on his side or is not very well, and I go to watch your water parameters and you go, I don't really know. I'm going to go, hey, you not watched my videos, have you? I'm going to go, you need to test your waters. It's almost like visiting the doctor. You don't go to the doctor and talk to the receptionist and ask how things are. You have to see the doctor. Think of your API or any water test kit as your doctor. This will give you an accurate reading of how your waters are within your Axolotl's aquarium. So it's vitally important that you have one. So thank you all so much for stopping by. I'm doing very handy today, aren't I? Very all about my hands. I love it anyway, but I'm all about them today. Thank you all so much for stopping by and checking out this week's video. I do help as well. I do hope this has proved helpful to you. Do let me know in the comments below if you have any tips or advice, if I've missed anything, if you think you can add something, or your experience with cycling a tank. There's lots of us out there doing this thing, so let's all share our comments below. And if you do have any questions, do feel free to hit me up on Instagram and all the other fun stuff that comes across the top right about now, or just leave a comment below and I'll get back to your comments. I tend to get back to comments the day before my next video comes out. So usually a Saturday or a Sunday, you'll start to realise or start to notice that I'll start replying to your comments. I don't ignore anybody, I just let them stack up to a reasonable number before I go on there and reply. So if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that like button, also hit the subscribe button, and of course ding that notification bell. And until next time, ta-ta for now. Woohoo! Just remember, tank cycling doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complex. There's a few golden...